There's a moment when someone sees you before you see yourself, not as potential, but as proof, as if they recognize a spark that hasn't learned its own name yet. For me, that someone was Adam. When we met, I didn't yet trust my own voice. I knew how to lead, but I doubted whether I deserved to. Inside, I was still battling the noise, the fear of being too much, the exhaustion of trying to be enough. Adam was already so far ahead, an executive, someone I deeply respected. But he never made the distance between us feel like hierarchy. He led with presence. He noticed before he corrected, and in that quiet noticing, something in me began to steady. He spoke the same strange electric language I've been trying to translate alone. The one built from curiosity, from care, from the ache to make something true. Where others saw intensity and flinched, he saw focus and heart. He knew that when I spoke with conviction, it wasn't to control. It was to find clarity, to bring something better to life. He nurtured that part of me, the part that wanted to build, to serve, to care, even when my mind told me I couldn't. And slowly, I started believing what he saw. Guidance doesn't always arrive with lessons and answers. Sometimes it's simply presence. Someone fluent in the same chaos, who knows how to listen until you find your rhythm again. That's how the light begins to move, from one steady hand to another. This is what passing the light means to me, the quiet act of being seen and the grace of being shaped by it.
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm an AI designer by heart, but I'm also Chief Curiosity Officer. I can't help but be curious about the way that humans work with one another and with technology and what my place in it all is.
When I think about the people who changed my path, Adam is the first name that comes to mind. He's someone I've admired for years, not just for the work he's built, but for the way he leads, with empathy, precision, and a kind of calm that steadies everyone around him. In rooms full of pressure, he brings stillness. And when he speaks, his clarity cuts through as truth. He's the kind of person whose influence echoes through decades, someone who's moved entire industries forward, shaping not only the work we make, but how we think about it. He's built programs that gave designers the tools to find their voice, teaching design thinking, the practice, the architecture, the discipline of pushing ideas until they stand on their own. He's my mentor, my friend, and someone I truly respect. He walks into a room and commands it, not by force, but by presence. To some, that can be intimidating. To me, it's familiar. We share that same intensity, the kind that comes from care, from wanting to get it right. And yet, he's always been approachable, open, and deeply human. He's an executive, but still a designer at heart, a leader, a friend, a father, a husband, someone whose light continues to reach further than he'll ever know. Our conversations have shaped how I see design, leadership, and what it means to build something that lasts. So today, I wanted to bring one of those conversations here, to trace where the light began and what it means to pass it forward. Phase 6. Passing the light. Part 2: The Architecture of Influence. Adam's career has never followed a straight line. And that's what makes it remarkable. He's carved his own path through curiosity and conviction, building bridges between disciplines that didn't always know how to speak to each other. Long before design had a defined seat at the table, he helped shape the language that made it possible. His influence isn't about titles or milestones. It's about motion, the way ideas travel through teams, how cultures shift when someone dares to think differently. You can trace his impact in the programs he's built, the systems that now guide thousands of designers, and the mindset he's instilled in the people who still carry his lessons forward. What first drew you to design?
I was first drawn to design without actually understanding that I was drawn to design. And that was like back when I was 7 years old. My parents took me and my brother to see Star Wars. I didn't know what I was going to see. I was just floored. You know, you experience like all these different things as children. That one to me was the introduction to that hero's journey. It meant something to me in a way that I wasn't prepared for it. I had curiosity just about everything that I saw in that movie, but what happened back then, and it's like almost impossible for people in your generation to understand, is back then, the only thing that you could buy when that movie came out was 2 posters. And so one poster was like of the 2 robots, and the other poster was of Darth Vader with his lightsaber extended, and he was standing in front of some gray sweep or whatever. And I remember I got that poster as a birthday present that year that Star Wars came out, and it hung over my bed. And this is obviously well before like computers and the internet and all that stuff. And so I would lay in my bed and I would look at that poster of Darth Vader. You don't have to have seen a Star Wars movie to know that like Darth Vader has the chest panel with all the buttons on it. He's got like a belt with like switches and buttons all over it. And I would sit there and I would be like, well, obviously this guy has a breathing problem. So like some of those buttons must have to do with the breathing part of it. But there's way too many buttons to be just for his breathing. So like, what are all those buttons for? That curiosity about what was all over Darth Vader's costume extended to the rest of it. Why were all the buttons where they were? And sometimes they would shoot the door panel and it would cause the door to unlock. And other times they would shoot the door panel and it would cause it to slam shut. And it was just like all these weird little observations. And I didn't know what I was doing then was anything other than like, these are the questions of a 7-year-old. But over the course of time, what I realized was that I had a curiosity that I think a lot of us actually have, regardless of what we end up doing. But I had a curiosity about like, why did things work the way that they work? I even had a book called The Way Things Work. And I was fascinated by this book because it was my version of what the internet is to everybody today. I could look things up and be like, here's how a steam engine works, or here's how a radio works. I just wanted to know the way that things work. And I think as I got older, because I had that curiosity about these sort of things, that then I started saying, could I do better? This thing that I bought or this thing that I'm experiencing could have been awesome, but it was missing something, or I was left feeling disappointed. Or I think the one that a lot of us as designers have is like, damn, if I had the ability to make this, I would have made these decisions instead of those decisions. And I think that is part of why we become designers, is like we know that we could maybe do it a better way or a different way or something that was more user friendly or whatever. But I think that's where it started, but it wasn't conscious. But then as I got older, I had a hard time in school. I wasn't a good student. I mean, I was a good student, but I wasn't, because I have crazy ADHD. And so I would hear from teachers and my parents and everybody like, you know, Adam, you're so smart. You have so much potential, but ... And it was sort of like, I'm a up, you know, I can't get my homework in on time, and I can't pay attention, and I talk too much in class. And so there's like that conscious bit of your brain that the older you get and the more that you can self-rationalize of like, what the hell am I going to be good at? I knew I didn't have the willingness to be a mathematician or a chemist or something where it required a lot of extra knowledge I couldn't hold in my head because it would just sort of go in one ear and out the other. So at some point, I'm thinking to myself, probably when I'm like a sophomore or junior in high school, what is it that I'm actually going to do that draws on my talents and that I can do something with? Something I left out about the Star Wars bit is that I think I drew like every other kid. And my dad was a research scientist. Everything would get printed out back in the days, like they'd be printing out manuscripts, medical experiments or scientific experiments or whatever. And so he'd bring home like this giant stack of scratch paper. It was like printed on one side. And I kept it in a drawer. My brother and I would draw like mad on these things all afternoon, drawing. And when Star Wars came out, because we didn't have like the video and we didn't have the toys and all that stuff, I was trying to draw all of this stuff from memory. And so I'm getting older and I never really stopped drawing. And I'm like, well, maybe there's something I could do with drawing. Like I didn't know, and so like there's this moment where you're like, ooh, I should take a drafting class. Maybe I could be an architect or whatever. But I excelled at art class for sure. And I was like, it has to have something to do with being creative. And I also remember my parents, but especially my father, saying something to the effect of, I'm not paying for you to go to school so that you can be a starving artist and live in my basement. It wasn't something that I could argue against. I was just like, well, okay, fine. Well, how do I do what I want to do? This drawing and creativity. I can't picture myself sitting in some cube form under fluorescent lights doing some soul-sucking job like insurance actuarial bullshit. And then on the other side, it was like, how do I just get paid like a functioning adult to do the things that I want to do? At some point, I think there was like I think it was called Nothing in Common. It was a Tom Hanks movie. Tom Hanks was sort of like a slapsticky buffoon in the beginning of his career. And this was one of like the most serious movies he had made to date. But it was, his father was getting older and he had to be put into the hospital. Tom Hanks' character was like this executive. He was like the creative director at an ad agency. And I had never really thought about like, oh, there's a place to go, like that's advertising. Mm-hmm. And then I watched what he was doing and I was like, I could do that. That sounds like a great job. Like you're brainstorming about cool ideas. And I thought, okay, well, that's what I want to do. And so that's what I set out to do. It was like, well, if I can't go to art school and I can't become an artist, I'm going to go learn how to do visual communication and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I graduated out into a recession, but I eventually ended up getting my first job as an art director at an ad agency. And that was sort of what really put me on the path. I found that path and I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to let go of that. I'm just going to go there. And that's where I ended up. And sort of like the rest is history. There was like evolution after that point. That was how I got there.
That's so interesting. I actually didn't know that about you. So I'm really glad I asked. I did know about the Star Wars stuff. I watched the show that you recommended, Light and Magic?
Oh, Light and Magic, yeah.
That show was amazing. My husband actually watched it while I was watching it, and then he even sat down. He was like, wow. And we were just so amazed by how incredible it was during that time. So I can see how magical it was for you as a kid. You didn't have what we have now, CG. That's where it came from, basically. So that was really cool to see, and I love the history. I want to rewatch it again because it's so inspiring. Was there a moment early on when it clicked for you, when you realized this wasn't just something you were good at, but something that you were meant to do?
The general area that I ended up in was what I wanted to do. I don't know that I was ever consciously thinking like, this is what I was meant to do. Mm. It was more like, I just want to keep getting better at this. Like, I kind of felt like I wasn't quite classically trained, so to speak, in the way that some others were. I also knew that I had an aptitude for it and that I was good. And when I first started working at the ad agency, there is a moment did click for me, but it was almost accidental. When I first got my job, like any other 23-year-old, I'm like, but I should be running the show. Every early 20s designer feels like I somehow know more than the people who have been doing this for 25 years out in front of me. And I just wanted to be let loose on the things that I wanted to be working on. And I didn't want to be like cutting things with X-Acto blades and getting Bestine all over my hands, doing everybody else's dirty work. And I would constantly ask my creative director, my executive creative director, like, can I come play with the big kids? And they would be kind of cruel and ruthless about it. They'd just sort of like shut the door in my face, or they'd be like, you're not ready yet, whatever. We were working on some mint campaign, and we had a bunch of layouts that were strewn all around this giant boardroom table in the ad agency. And there was some bus billboard, bus card sort of thing for the mint. The headline was something like, good for a good night kiss. And I was walking around the table and I saw that one layout and I mumbled to myself, really, like, oh, that's the wrong headline. It should be, turns a good night kiss into a good morning kiss. And I felt this hand on top of my head and I got spun around, and it was my executive creative director. And he's like, now you can come hang out with us. I was missing the little magical spice that everybody else had because I was too young. I didn't know. My ideas were not great and they were kind of pedestrian up until that moment. And that first time I said it, it was accidental. It was just a thought that popped into my head. But then when he was like, okay, well, now you can come play with us, it was sort of like, okay, what did I just do there? Like, how do I do that again? I don't know how I did it. I didn't want to lose the opportunity. I wanted to keep being asked to come play with them. Mm-hmm. It was that moment where I was like, I actually can do this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I think with each little bit of success, getting it to that place where it became muscle memory, the way that I would come up with whatever the ideas were, it just started to get faster and faster and faster. And when I could feel it, turn around and point at that part of me and be like, oh, I'm doing this. That was a moment where I was like, okay, I'm not going to end up selling insurance when I fail out of this job. I can keep doing this and I'm going to be good at it.
Who were the people or experiences that shaped how you think about creativity in those early years?
For sure, my mother encouraged me in so many different ways. She was constantly putting me in front of ideas, experiences, whatever, because she thought I would like it. There was an art class that was being offered through the town or something like that.
So she encouraged you always?
Always. I mean, even to this day, and it's funny, like it's sort of come back around where my wife and I encouraged her to start doing art. She's now off on her own, just cruising. She is prolific in terms of what she makes, but she was always giving me the opportunities to express myself, whether it was sculpting or drawing or just anything that was creative. She knew that lit me up. Mm-hmm. And so she constantly was putting me in those sort of situations where I could figure out, ooh, I really do have a love for this, or I tried it, wasn't for me. So for sure, my mom, 100%. The guy who gave me my first job, Toby, he was really the first person who, in a professional sense, understood what I was going to be capable of, but also recognized that I wasn't capable of it yet. Mm-hmm. And rather than just read me a laundry list of do this, do that, these are the things that you have to do to be great, he would sort of ask me leading questions, or he'd leave some big thing hanging out there and he would wait to see what I would do and see like sometimes where my intuition would pull me, or he had taught me something before and did I internalize that and then make use of it. And he would also hold me accountable. He would push on me if I missed the lesson or reverted back to some previously bad behavior or some whatever it was. He would always be the guy to call me out on it and to be like, well, there's a different way or there's another way. And he was also one of the first people that I had ever met where this guy would just think 18 million layers deeper than anybody I had ever talked to. This is back in the day where like everything that we take for granted about computing today was not there. We were just building or understanding things. Maybe the rudimentary internet was around, like the AOL Prodigy CompuServe things. I remember he built this knowledge navigator in HyperCard or something like that. And it was like one of the first times I had seen anything that resembled a word cloud. He was always like, here's different ways that we can use technology to display information at the most basic layer. But then what did that mean from a user experience? And those two words together weren't part of my vocabulary. And I don't know that they were part of his then, but we would get together and hang out in his home studio and he would be showing me these things. And I would just walk out of there completely blown away. Like, how did he think about this? And how did he get there? He was constantly challenging me, but he was also taking me along for the ride. I didn't have mentors in the way that people have mentors now. And he represented that. First, I'm going to show you this magic trick. And then whether you ask me or not, I want to see how the magic trick is done. And he would unwind his thinking for me. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever experienced. Here's somebody who is an adult. He was probably like in his mid 30s at that point, or maybe early 30s. But to me, he was like this much older guy. And he was like... And he was showing me all of his like trade secrets. And I just felt like, wow, I'm on the inside of something, or I'm getting something that I just wouldn't get from working at any old place. And that definitely put me on a path. Between my mom and Toby, I think those were the big ones. The rest of it, I think I more or less scrapped it out, where I was like me fighting to be heard. Like I was trying to go someplace that other people weren't, and they sort of reluctantly went along with it. And then they were like, oh, there is something here. Those two were the most formative in terms of like setting me up for how I think about things. And I still do.
You've seen design transform again and again over the course of your career, right? What stands out to you about how it's evolved and how you've evolved alongside it?
What I see is how it actually doesn't change a lot. The content changes, the capabilities change, but the evolution is the same. I think something that people who are outside the design profession get a little mixed up is that what we're doing is not a personal expression of what's important to us. It's that we're doing it in service of other people. We're solving somebody else's problem. Mm-hmm. And so as a designer, it's like if you're solving somebody else's problem back in the early 90s, it's like, well, the PC is starting to make its way onto everybody's desktops. And so there's basic office suite technology like spreadsheets and word processors. Okay, well, that changes the way that we're doing things. But at the end of the day, we're doing something more efficiently. These are just ways to democratize things that you had to go out to like some print studio or whatever to get it done. And you could do it with a relatively expensive, but not break the bank expensive. And then you see the internet, and you see social media and mobile and all of these things. It's like, yeah, they connect us broader and they bring us more power, and there's more that we get to do. And now we walk around with like the entirety of human knowledge in our pockets every day. At the end of it all, design is still the same. There's a human being somewhere else that has a problem. And if I'm the person or you're the person who's been contacted to solve that problem, it's not about what I want and it's not about what you want. It's what they need. The evolution is in the medium itself versus the act of designing changes, and we dig our heels into it. There's the generation of print designers that came before the computer, and Massimo Vignelli is like designing, grossly paraphrasing here, but Massimo Vignelli, you can't do good design on a computer. And I think 2 or 3 generations of designers would say maybe that's not true, but he felt like that at the time because he felt like the computer would remove the human hand from the process and from the output. And the reality is it's just a different way to get the idea out there. You see this cycle repeat itself. And now here we are again, and not without due concern. But now people are saying this about AI, like, oh, it's going to remove my validity and it's going to change the nature of my job. And it's like, well, it only removes your validity if you don't grow and evolve with where the technology is going. It is up to us to choose to move forward with where everything is going, but it is futile to complain about it or to dig your heels into it. It's like standing on the shore of the ocean and trying to hold the tide back. It just, like, for all of your complaining, it's still going to happen. So figure out where your place is in it.
Yes, I agree. I got laid off and they were like, I'm so sorry this happened to you and this and that. Articles coming out like AI is taking your job and this and that. And I'm like thinking it's hilarious because we are the ones who gave AI an identity in our company, and then they're like, bye. But I think like I still want to have a hand in that, and I want to grow alongside it, and I want to find my place in it. I'm not scared to face that. I always thought design, and you taught me this, is that design is going to be able to be applicable to any medium. It doesn't matter. So it's just like a way of thinking.
Yeah, it's like literally if somebody else is going to have a problem in something and you can help somebody else make a solution to that problem, you're still designing, right?
There you
and
go.
that AI will get more capable over the course of time, and what our definition of what design is and what it looks like is going to change and evolve again, in the same way that, like, look, if you were working on a drafting board with an X-Acto blade back in the late 80s, early 90s, you couldn't fathom doing everything on a Macintosh with a color printer. Like, you just couldn't fathom it. And it's like the same thing here. It's like, what is it going to turn into? I don't know. But if you're not experimenting and you're not getting your hands dirty, like up to your shoulders dirty, it's going to pass you by. I always say, like, people won't be able to see this, but behind me is this like huge stack of books that are just exclusively about design. And as we hurtle into the AI era, a lot of what's in these books stop making sense. And then there's other things in there that are just like rock bottom ground truth, that it doesn't matter if it's AI or if it's digital or if it's hand drawn or whatever. Those things never change because we're humans. As long as we remain human, those things don't change. I think the big difference here right now that's occurring is when people in my generation were just getting started with the internet, we saw a means to an end. Being at everybody else's mercy to get an idea out there. Like, you had to pay somebody, it had to be on TV. It was always like big broadcast. That was the only way you were going to get people to hear your idea. And I think when we saw the internet, we were like, oh, this is self-publishing and we can go anywhere in the world with it. We had to make up the rules that went into these books that are behind me. And I was part of making those rules or approaches or methods or frameworks or whatever, and continued to do so throughout my career at IBM. When we were starting out with all this, had to come up with our own rules, with our own, like, this is how we're going to do things, because they just didn't exist. After us, and it took about, 5 to 10 years, then, and only then, did schools start offering programs in user experience design and software design and things like that. And so then what happens is everything calcifies. Are you from Carnegie Mellon School of Thought? Are you from a Stanford School of Thought? There's so many different schools, and they all have similar but not the same thoughts. And so then you form your identity as a designer based on the program that you were in. Because that's all solidified around curriculum and rubrics and syllabuses, and you mix together that with the decided difference in generational behavior, whereas Gen X was left to just go fend for themselves. And if you're a millennial or a Gen Z, it's like you had a lot of your life scheduled out for you between play dates and practice and band and whatever it was that you were doing. Everything was just scheduled. And so, like, you end up going to school and getting codified degree in something that's based on schedules. And so the ability for you to be like, hey, I don't have what I need to get my job done, so I'm going to make something, that drive is kind of missing a little bit. And because it's all centered and codified around what you've all experienced at school, you're less likely to challenge that or to say, like, yeah, that was what I was taught 10 years ago or 15 years ago or however long it's been. But I need to come up with something new now because the technology has changed, because there's intelligence in these machines and so on and so forth. And so there has to be something where you collectively, somebody has to think out in front. Like, and that's an uncomfortable spot, because people will argue with you and people will come after you on the internet and tell you, like, you're wrong 100 different ways because that's not the way we do things, or that's not the way we were taught this stuff. And it's causing this existential crisis amongst a lot of us, because it's like, if you call yourself a visual designer, can that job be done by an AI? Well, kinda. Is it going to be great or perfect right now? No. But if you can see how good it is with things like Figma Make or anywhere else where you can, even prompting things like Sora and DALL-E and that sort of thing, it's like, yeah, we're in the pocket calculator era of AI right now. We're going to look back and think, why did we get so excited about these dumb chatbots when there's like so much more that's going to come after this? It's just where we are right now is the beginning, and we just think, oh, well, this is the logical end to it. And it's not.
Yeah, it's the beginning.
How do we create the next, bookshelf full of books for these things that have yet to be understood, yet to be decided on, and yet to be discussed? There's a lot of generational communication differences. It's not that one is better or worse, it's that they're different. And so without having free-form collaboration where the ability to hold a semi-safe space for people to debate, discuss, and to disagree with one another and to see like, here's 1,000 ideas that we should all be considering, figuring out, does this work or does it work only in certain circumstances? And, is this better served for small and medium businesses versus the enterprise? Like all of those questions have yet to be answered. And you are inheriting this so that the people who are just coming out of schools right now, they're going to be looking up to you in the same way that your generation is looking up to folks like myself.
Yeah. As your work began to expand, guiding teams, building programs, shaping culture, how did your own relationship with design start to change?
I feel it all the time, every day. The relationship with design is that when you're getting started, you really don't have a choice. It's you doing the work. You're the one who's making the decisions, and you're the one staying up all night, and you're working really hard. And as you expand within your role and you do move to guiding teams of people and building programs to support those things, you get removed a layer at a time from the actual work. And a lot of people lament, as designers, they lament this shift from being like the practitioner to the manager. If you have big ideas, it's those other people that you work with or that you lead that are really going to get the work done. Because for us to have the big ideas that we have, it's not a single player game. Like you have to do this like as a team, or you have to do it with like a bunch of partners. So my relationship to design was, and I didn't understand it in the transition actually, is that as I started leading people, I still wanted to be that person who checks the work at the end. Like I wanted to be able to make sure that the team was doing all the right things for all the right reasons. And I was like that person who's taking the food from the kitchen and making sure that the plates are just right. And then I'm going to go out and put it out there to get served. And it's not realistic when you start working past a certain scale. And so my relationship with design changed in the way that instead of me sitting at a computer with my fingers on the keyboard and on a mouse, it was that people like you ended up becoming like my Figma, right? Like you represented a certain set of skills, and I would say, okay, we have to have a thing that looks like this. It was me finding the piece to be like, you don't need to have a say in this. You need to have trust in the people that are doing this. As opposed to doing it yourself, it's that if you give people the right initial conditions to do their best work, they're going to do what you need them to do as the person leading the effort, but they're going to do it in their own way. And what people don't realize is they think whatever their signature delivery is, whatever that thing that makes them, is that it has to actually come out of the end of your fingers, which is true for a lot of different things. But I think when it comes to design, especially at the scale that we've been accustomed to working at, you and I, it's more like we have to work as a team, and I have to trust you to do what you do best. And that as soon as I can trust you to do your best, there's no question. It's just like, hey, we need to do this. And I give you just enough to do what you need to do and let you be yourself in it. And then what you find is what your signature work looks like is the sum total of the people that you're working with. And this is where it gets interesting. Like sometimes we get to handpick those people because you're like, these are the best tools for the job, in air quotes. These are the best people for this job. And in other cases, you get dealt a hand where you're like, I don't know, maybe these people aren't the best. You don't get to like throw your ball and go home because you didn't get the best deal of cards. It's like you have to make it work. And I think something I learned along the way is that whenever you're starting up something new, it's never ideal. Like, because you don't have that background and you don't have the bonds, the shared bonds of going through something together. To me, it was always like, how would I feel if I joined a team in the same way that like you joined up with me when we first started doing all the Carbon for AI work? How would I feel if I felt like I was on the outs, I wasn't welcome, and I wasn't up to snuff, and I wasn't good enough to be a part of this team? I would feel like shit.
But if I can make you feel welcome and I can say, hey, I think you're great here, 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 and I think it's these two things that are blocking you. And I can say to you with some sort of candor, like, hey, Laura, let's talk about and work on these specific things. It keeps you free to continue being awesome with all the things that you're being awesome with. But then it gives you the opportunity to work on the things that may be holding you back, or maybe it's not even holding you back, but it's holding back the way that the team operates together. As somebody who's leading design, I think the important thing is to understand each person's role, where they can be pushed. And oftentimes where a person can be pushed is a lot further than they're actually comfortable admitting or comfortable thinking about. Part of my style, which some people do not do well under, and most do, is that I push you hard. I pushed you harder than I think you've ever been pushed. And that is because I know you can do it. And if there's a little tiny voice in your head where you're like, I can't. And I'm just like, yeah, but look, you actually are. I'm showing you your own stuff back to you. Look at what you're doing.
You've already done
it. Yeah, just be confident that you're actually doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing. How you lead a team is not, it's this and this and it's my way or the highway. It's more like, look, here's the shared destination we all need to get to. You're really good at doing these sorts of things. How can I help you work together with me and with the rest of the team so that you can be happy doing like killer work, the best that you possibly can, and also still have opportunity to learn and to push yourself and to push your craft. And that's where we all do our best work, especially when the whole team clicks and vibes together. Like there's also that part too. If everybody is kind of feeling the same like first day of school vibes when you jump on a team together, you're kind of sizing each other up and you're looking at this other person and you're like, oh my God, they're so much better than me and I'm intimidated and I can't believe I'm working for this person over here. And like, don't get me wrong, I've felt this like thousands of times over my career. It's the people who lead you that make you go, yeah, maybe you are out over your skis a little bit. Maybe you are in over your head a little bit, but I'm not going to let you drown. I'm not going to let you fail. And I'm going to help you get through this. Like every time I had somebody who is willing to take that kind of time with me to make that investment in me, invariably I grew leaps and bounds each time. And so a lot of what I give of myself to other designers, not even necessarily like younger designers, but just designers who seek me out or whatever, is that I never had that, except for like with that guy Toby, where he was sort of pushing me. And like for every moment past that, I either was with a bunch of people we were all figuring it out together. So they weren't pushing me in that they were coming from some place of like higher understanding. It was that we were pushing each other because we were trying to figure out this shared phenomena that none of us understood. And then once that happened, especially when I showed up at IBM, like they didn't give a about design or designers. I mean, they were all like icon monkeys and stuff like that. I was like, I don't know that I can work here. But it was when I started figuring out that I could tell a different story and I could get people. Well, first, I think it was that I had the realization that people just didn't understand why design was important. And I was like, can I tell a story that tells people why design is important without being preachy and had some sort of sneak attack to it, where like I could get them agreeing with it, and then they would sort of like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, why are we not doing this right now? And why are we not considering design more? And that was how I got over the hump of not wanting to be at IBM. I figured out that there were ways that I could tell people this, and that the more I told that story, that other people wanted to tell that story too, and that I was giving them vocabulary and ideas that they could use to tell that story themselves, to advocate for themselves or to advocate for design. And that throughout all of that, though, I didn't have anybody coaching me. And so for all of this, to bring it all the way back around, is like, I just see this as like my absolute obligation to anybody who needs it. Can I be that person or that source of information or inspiration that I just never had? And so that's why I love doing things like this and why I do what I do.
I love that. In one of my podcasts, I talked about that with my fandom, where my friend and I, we wished we had something, like someone set up events for us to do these things that we like to do in our fandom. And like, we're like, oh, we don't have anyone, so I guess we have to be the ones. And so we do it for others. And it's crazy. Now that I'm laid off, I realize like, oh my God, IBMers are literally the best people. Like ex-IBMers, like people who've gone through your program, literally the same people that I have befriended 10 years ago are still the same exact people who are willing to help me, who are so kind, who go out of their way. And I just think that's insane. This is amazing. I loved it so much. I feel so supported.
Yeah, I mean, also not accidental. I mean, when we hired the first 60 designers into that program out of school, we didn't know. I mean, the people who were kickstarting it all, we didn't know what the ideal IBM designer was. And over that first year, we learned some things. For what we were trying to do, you couldn't be a lone wolf designer, that you had to be a collaborative designer, that you had to be, as much as anyone can be, egoless in the process, right? Like, it wasn't about, oh, I'm trying to do this because I need to win a Red Dot Award or something like that. We wanted people who wanted to get to the heart of the problem, because that was the thing that scratched their particular itch. It wasn't about the recognition, and it wasn't about winning awards or anything like that. It was just, this is what makes me tick, and I want to do this with other people. You know, you were the beneficiaries of everybody who came after that first group, of understanding, oh, this is what we value in these types of designers. And I do think that that played a very big role in how tight all of us became, how we are all still tight and in contact with each other, even well after people have left IBM, whether before us or after us or whatever.
Crazy.
Like, it's less about IBM and more about what we all did. Phil and Doug and Charlie and Joni and all these folks, like, what we put into that program was to create those initial conditions for you all to do what you needed to do with it. Especially as everything is becoming more and more probabilistic. It's not about having like the answer. It's about coming up with those initial conditions that allow people to go off and be awesome. And that there's this weird fractal chaos that comes out on the other side of, I don't know what you're going to do with this, and you don't know what you're going to do with this, but if I give you all of the right things to start with, you're going to go off and do some great thing after the fact. That's one thing I can pass on, is that understanding of what are my personal initial conditions that I thrive in. You know, if you're listening to this podcast, like, what are your initial conditions that preset your happiness? It can't just be all non-adverse happiness. Like, where is that external friction that pushes you to go further, to try harder, to learn new things? And once you understand that, you start getting a better sense of, like, if you're going to lead other people, or if you're just going to like collaborate with a partner on a side project or something, how do you do that outside of yourself? And once you get good at that, then it's like, oh, give me 100 people, give me 500 people. And how do I give you what you need to go off and be awesome on your own?
I'm definitely on the path. That's why you're my mentor. That's why I'm leaning on you for this. I'm lucky I have you as my mentor. You didn't have anyone. When you begin something new, a system, a vision, a direction, what guides your first step?
It's two things. The first one is, who am I designing this for, and what is the problem that I'm solving? Like, if I don't know that, I can work off my gut or my instinct, but like, I have to know that. Who am I solving this for? And then the second is, what do I have to work with? That's something that I learned as I got older. I don't know if it was like a wiser thing, but what I realized was, it doesn't help to say, well, how come I don't have everything I want? I just want to be able to run wild with it.
Right.
It's more like you have to design to the constraints that you have. And what I found sort of historically over my career is that the more constraints that are placed on a team or an individual, that's when they actually do their best work, is that they're being clever and resourceful around it. So yeah, it's really like, who am I designing this for, and what do I have to work with? And that's where I start with everything. And once I understand the who am I designing this for part of it, every other step, every other day that goes by while I'm working on whatever that particular problem is, I'm constantly asking myself, like, so it's Tuesday, what do I have to work with today? You know, what am I trying to get to today? Who do I need to talk to get what I need in order to do this, right? Or the answer is, there's nothing, there's nobody, and it's never going to come. Okay, then what's my next best option, and what do I do from there? And it eliminates me being lazy as a designer and just being like, oh, I can just jam this here because I don't have what I need. It's like, oh, well, how do I do this the best I can, given the fact that I don't have these things?
You've led so many creative people over the years. What have you learned about what it takes to lead well, especially when everyone in the room is wired to create?
It's about the initial conditions. That is the most important thing. How do you modulate these different things, and how do you get people to understand their role in a team? It's not just what's going to make you happy. Yes, your Figma file is flawless and glossy and lovely. And of course, I want to lick the screen. It looks so good. But if you can't build it, or it can be built, but it's not performant, and it's like causing people's browsers to make their processors immolate, how do we start chipping that back a little bit so that it's still what you want it to be, but realistic? I'm taking you as a designer out of the equation. Now you are quite literally the human version of Figma. I'm just telling you, go do this thing. And if you come back with anything other than the thing that I asked you to do, then I'm unhappier. I'm not satisfied. And so what does that leave for you as somebody who works with me? You're like, well, I'm not satisfied in this. I'm just doing what he's telling me to do, versus me saying, you're smart, go figure this out. And even if you trip and stumble and make garbage at first, or you miss the point or whatever, by putting a partially baked idea in front of the two of us or in front of the whole team, it gives us something to talk about. And then if it's wrong, well, then let's talk about why it's wrong. It's not like it's wrong and I don't like it. It's wrong because, and if I were doing this, it would be like this. And you have to be able to have those conversations in order to push yourself and to push the team and to learn from one another. And the irony of all of this is we complain about the hallucinations of an AI. They get things wrong. Well, guess what? We do with each other all day, every day. Sometimes we just sort of go off of like our instinct, or sometimes it's like, well, I read a news headline somewhere at one point and I'm just going to start saying something about it. We miss details. We are fuzzy about things. We give the wrong answer. And when we're called out on it, or we all look at it and we're like, wow, I totally told you to do the wrong thing, or I made a mistake, or I handled this incorrectly. For us to be like, okay, well, how do we fix that? Okay, great. We work through it. LLMs do the same thing. And I realized I am just as thankful for a bad LLM answer as I am a good one, because I figured out there's like some split second where I see something wrong come back from it. And I go, that's totally wrong. And then there's like ... because, and then my brain like in a split second goes, oh, that's what I'm missing. By it showing me something wrong helps the right thing to pop out of my head, right? So
Me
it's
too.
like, right? So like there's something about that as an emergent behavior set. Well, A, is it really emergent when we do this with each other all the time? But why is it so different when there's like a computer doing it with us instead? And it's like, well, because we know that computer isn't going to judge me, or, there's other things that are going in there psychologically that change the way that we look at this. But if you step back, it's really no different than human to human interaction. You have to have that set of initial conditions to allow all of these things to bloom, instead of trying to guide it so tightly towards some predetermined outcome. Everybody in the mix is going to be happier and more fulfilled as a leader if I'm letting you all do what you need to do, because you know what you need to do. When you have that sort of flow between a team, including its leadership, it's just genuinely fun. You go to work feeling invincible to a certain extent. Like there's no problem that can be thrown at this group that we can't figure out.
I definitely feel like that is hammered into me. So thank you so much for that, for helping shape me as a designer. After all this time, what still excites you about design? Like what keeps that sense of curiosity alive for you?
Well, it's like the capabilities of how we solve problems. For as long as I can remember, whether it goes before Star Wars, after Star Wars, like my desire to just push a good button, every kid's like that. Can I push the button in the elevator? Like, I think I had that to another extreme. I saw a new or better way, or something that held my attention. Like I was always like, oh, how do I dive deep into this? And I think where we are right now is, if you've seen any of my speaking gigs over the last 10 years, one of the messages that does not change ever is that we're leaving the transactional era of computing and we're entering the relationship era of computing. And like, think about it all like transactional. It's an elaborate Rube Goldberg machine to get you the right answer out of the back. And when it starts flipping over to a relationship model, it's quite different. And how we think about approaching the problem, how we think about solving the problem, what collaboration means to us. And we're still not in the multiplayer era of AI. Like, it's impossible for me, you, and ChatGPT to be all in the same chat thing because it would get confused. But at some point, we will have LLMs or something that replaces LLMs that knows, oh, Vora is typing now and Adam is typing right now, and let the humans talk. Or that the AI would know, like, I have to insert myself here. You're both totally wrong, and here's why. Like, we're not there yet, but like,
Can't wait.
what? Yeah, right. Well, I think that's going to make a lot of people nervous, and I think some people will be genuinely scared of it. But like, what keeps me excited in that sense of curiosity is that we have new capabilities that are now at our fingertips. Maybe not quite at our fingertips yet, but they're on the way. When we start seeing chatbot builders, Photoshop was for images or Figma is for web applications, you're going to see this massive explosion of creativity that's going to create things that we just couldn't possibly fathom any other way, but we're not there yet. It could be as soon as like next Wednesday, like we're all doing our thing, minding our own business, and Anthropic makes some announcement, or, OpenAI makes some announcement. It just changes everything. And then all these people who are curious and interested in this, they're going to be like, what can I do with this? And then the more people do with it, the other people see it and they get inspired. And then it just causes this new flywheel to show up.
I just think it's so fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what keeps my curiosity going. It's funny. My curiosity is always centered on the human condition and the human relationship. You start getting these new capabilities and it's like, oh boy, where do we go next about understanding ourselves? And that to me is like, hey, I'll keep doing this until I'm like not able to for one reason or another, but that genuinely fascinating to me.
Part 3, the craft of being human. After years of hearing Adam speak about design, I've come to realize that what makes his work extraordinary isn't just his vision. It's the life around it. The way he listens, the way he thinks, the way he notices the smallest details. He leads with presence, but he also lives with it. And somehow, the same thoughtfulness that defines his work finds its way into everything else he does, from how he spends his mornings to how he shows up for the people he loves. Outside of design, who are you?
I'm me. I mean, who am I?
Who are you outside of design?
I'm a loving husband. I'm a good father. I'm creative. I'm artistic. I am a deep thinker. I mean, one of the things that I say an awful lot, and you must have heard this at least once in many of our mentorship sections, who I am is who I am. I was sort of being cheeky at the beginning, but this persona is the persona that you get at work. It's the persona that you get when we're hanging out in my living room or out at a restaurant or at a show or whatever. I'm me. I don't distinguish, and I think part of why I chose to do what I'm doing and how I ended up here is that I didn't want to have like the work version of me and the personal version of me. I just want to be me.
What are the things that bring you joy or keep you grounded when life moves fast?
Some of the things that I do to keep myself grounded is meditating. I start every morning outside. We have a little side patio.
I love that patio.
Sometimes sit out there. Yeah. And I sit out there and I just watch the birds come to the feeder. I listen to the bird song, and the neighborhood is quiet, and sometimes you just hear the wind blowing through the trees or whatever. But I try to sit with that before I just run straight to my computer and go. Mm-hmm. On the other side of me here, I have a bunch of guitars and a bunch of effects pedals and loud amplifiers. And so sometimes I just sit there and make my own special brand of noise just for me.
What kind of guitar do you play?
Electric guitars. I have like an SG, and I have a Jazzmaster, and I have this old Dan Electro that I got for like $150 at the citywide garage sale. It's all electric, and there's like a spaceship's worth of foot pedals that make my signals sound even weirder. Sometimes I just need to do that so that I am thinking about something other than work, because my brain is constantly churning on it. I'm constantly thinking about it.
Me
I need things that they're so immediate and require some sort of direct brain interaction that it prevents me from thinking about what I'm constantly thinking about. Video games is another one, and I've been like that since I was a kid. I remember we had the very first Pong thing where it was like rectangles with a little dot and you'd play like tennis with it or whatever. The Christmas we got, the Atari 2600 was just like a mind blower. I've never stopped playing, and there was at one point when I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s, I was definitely playing a PlayStation 2. I was playing some fighting game. I had one of those moments where an out-of-body experience or whatever, like you're looking at yourself over your shoulder, and I'm like, my fingers are going a million miles an hour over these 14 buttons on this controller, and none of it is conscious. Everything about this is me doing what I'm doing. And of course, as soon as you have the thought, the whole thing in the flow falls apart because you're consciously aware of it. I realized in that moment that video gaming wasn't just an escape, but it was also in the same way that you go to the gym to work out to increase your physical strength. That gaming to me was a way to work on my intellectual strength. If I'm playing something that's real twitchy, like a fighting game, it's about making millisecond decisions all the time. It's translating just-in-time finger motions to do that. And then there's other things where they're puzzle games, where it's like, how do you get out of the room that you're stuck in? And then there's the long play or adventure type games where you're thinking about how the story is being created with all the newer technology and everything. The ability to tell a story that rivals that of a book or a movie or a TV series in a video game it's not something that we can just sort of dream about. It's definitely been here for at least 2 generations. So I'm always thinking about the narrative choices that they're making in a digital medium. And then there's the super tactical thing like, why did they make the UI like this? All of these things are constantly going through my head. So on the one hand, if I'm playing a game, I'm not thinking about how do I solve this from an AI perspective or what's the human impact. I'm literally having fun with it. But on some level, I'm training my abilities to make decisions in real time and stick with it and to understand most of the decisions that we have to make are not written in stone and there's no going back. There's always a respawn. Yeah, maybe I send a team down a route of design this, build this, and then somebody upstream from me says, oh, we can't do it or we're not doing that anymore. And I have to turn around to the team and be like, oh, well, thanks for 3 weeks worth of work, but we're not going to build this anymore. At a certain point in your life or your career, that's like motivation ending. You're like, get all, this is just a big wasted time. Like we make a big deal about it. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, we spent 3 weeks working on something that's never going to see the light of day, but that's the way it is. Every movie, every TV show, every album that we listen to is filled with B-sides, unreleased tracks, deleted scenes, complete overhauls, rewrites, and reshoots. It's part of the creative process, except when we're designing software, we feel like we've got to get it right the first time because I just spent 3 weeks working on that. And it's like, well, no, you don't. And so understanding you can make decisions and not really have to worry about it. In one sense, like, yeah, playing video games helps me not think about work, but it's also contributing to how I do it on the other side and how I think about it. So, but it's not about the work itself. I guess that's the most important thing is like, you know, both require a lot of deliberate focus on playing music or playing games or something like that. Every once in a while, I get up and I'm like, I'm just going to go sort of walk around the neighborhood or take the dogs for a walk or something like that. My problem with doing that as a way to relax is that my brain won't let go of that last conversation that I had or like, these are the 5 things that I need to do tomorrow. And as I'm walking and I have the peace and quiet and the birds and all that other stuff, I'm actually ratcheting it all up because now I have focused time to think about it and do something. I need to do things that take me away from the thinking about what I think about all the time. So making art is another one, improving parts of the house, being immunocompromised during the pandemic. My wife wouldn't let me touch the mail at one point, you know, like when there were no vaccines or anything like that.
It was scary.
I just remember feeling like, oh man, I'm a prisoner in my own house. And I know that I'm not saying anything that other people haven't felt before, but like I had a moment, you know, the design mind kicked in around this and I was like, well, every space in my house has to be some destination of some sort. If I can't leave and I don't know when I'm going to, every place in my house has to be some place for me to go. And, you know, there has to be a reason for it. We did a lot of that stuff during the pandemic and now everybody's back out in the world, but there are still things that either we started and we didn't finish or it's like, ooh, the first part of that was realize there's a second part, or I would like to do that better. So all of these things outside of work are still creative pursuits.
We have to do things outside of work that are also creative and fun. You've always balanced such a big role with such humility. How do you stay connected to yourself in the middle of so much responsibility?
I mean, the key word here is the humility. Like, from the very beginning of the design program at IBM, I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be about us. So part of the tension that I would constantly be looking at is how do I keep myself in the mix enough so that I can play that role model, to be somebody who can either praise you for doing a great job or to call you out if you're being a bad actor. Like, you have to have some degree of authority in there. Otherwise, you're just one of the group. You're not really leading. But I think at the same time, it's like, what the hell do I know? I think we're here to figure this out together. And so it's like, how do you stay involved enough to be the person that everyone needs you to be? And also, how do you take your hand off the wheel enough to let other people do the steering and to do that? Thanks for recognizing that I've been humble through this, as best I can be.
You're a very humble person.
I think being connected to myself in the middle of the responsibility is, I don't know that that's the right question or the right thing for me, because part of what defines me is I am connected from the beginning and I stay connected throughout. It's not about myself. During the middle of that, like if I'm working with a team, it's about the team. Am I serving the team? Am I helping you do the best work that you can do? It's not more complicated than It's like, that is what matters to me. So how do I stay connected? It's really not like a how. It's just, I can only be the authentic person that I am. And sometimes people like that and sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's comfortable, sometimes it's not. But I don't ever lose myself in this. If anything, my biggest problem is that I am too connected to myself. Like, there are times where I just need to let go a little, like even more, or not be so hard on myself and not expect so much of myself, because it's I do expect a lot of my teams and the people that I work with, but it's really like, am I letting people down? Am I letting you down if you're on my team? Am I letting the customer down if it's the customer? Is it our leadership? But I don't ever lose contact with that part of me. I mean, it's just, again, I am who I am.
What does a good day look like for you when you're not working? But I don't know, because you're always working. So tell me.
No, I'm not always working. I mean, now that I'm outside of IBM and I'm working with the startup, yes, I am working an awful lot more than I have been. But it does involve a lot of what we were talking about. But a good day is going on some adventure with my wife, Jody. Like, she's really good at both instigating and going along with it. We'll do something like, hey, let's drive out to Lockhart to go to this place where they have hot springs. And then, what can we find while we're in the area? And then we come back and then it's like, hey, what if we went and did this? Or let's get reservations at this restaurant. I like adventuring with her. That's a perfect day. It's great weather and a good trip. Like, we love making a
You guys always have the best restaurant recommendations too. Like, you guys always know exactly where to go, and I'm just like, that must be a hobby. Finding these
for sure.
foodie hobby.
Eating out at good restaurants. Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. Anybody who knows us knows that. But a good day for me when I'm not working is Jody and I off on some micro adventure. It doesn't have to be a big one, and we certainly have our fair share of those too. But I think it's like, let's go see what we can see out in the middle of West Texas. It's not necessarily the destination, although frequently we do have good destinations, but it's more like, what's the trip like on the way there? What do we see that's serendipitous? That to me is like a perfect day.
When you think about your personal philosophy, the way you live, the choices that you make, what guides that?
Yeah, I feel like I end up repeating myself, but it is how simple I actually am. It's like, be authentic. Be true to who you are. That's my philosophy. What I'm being true to is that I am in service of other people. That what I'm doing is not for myself, but for either a class of users or a community or society. I'm thinking about it like that. Like, here. There's no video, but read out loud what this post-it note says that hangs on my wall.
We are doing what we do in service of our end users. You would have to know yourself to know that value, that this is your value, this is what drives you. When did you find that? You've always known it?
In advertising, there are user needs, but it's really like 7 words can I combine together with a clever picture to make you buy this brand
It's
of
like, how can I
pizza
make
or
you do
beer.
something versus like, how do I design this for you?
Yeah, and so I think
different.
when I became conscious about like the idea of user needs assessment, being user-centric, either that's a bunch of words that mean something different to you, or you literally take it for what it says on the tin, which is user-centric means you're putting the user at the center of the solution that you're designing. And that means if they're in the center, you can't be. There's no space for you to be in there, right? Like the output that you make is your contribution to that. But if it's user-centric, it's not about you, it's about them. Mm-hmm. And if you really do connect that thought in your head to what it is that you're actually doing, you either live that or you don't. It's either words that come out of your mouth or it's you walking the walk. I don't know that I have a very conscious like, oh, that's when it happened or that's where it came from, but it's something that's been there for more than 2 decades at this point.
Are there any habits, hobbies, or practices that remind you to slow down or to keep your wonder alive?
There was another sticky note, but I actually think I took it down. It was literally on my wall up until yesterday, but it's something that I preach the startup I'm with now with Bast. It's things that I told my superiors at IBM, but I really do honestly believe that you have to slow down just enough to speed up. When we run around all willy-nilly because there's a deadline, we make ourselves really anxious about it. We think, oh, I can't let this thing drop, so you work a little bit on this and then you go work a little bit on that, and then somebody says, hey, what about that first thing? And you're like, oh crap, I forgot about that because I moved on to the other thing. There's no peace or harmony or one thing flows to the other. It's just you're constantly running from one thing to the next, and you're not thinking about all these different activities and how they chain together into something that should be bigger than any one given little doodad that you're working on in the moment. It's literally saying those words to the people that I work with, but oftentimes it's just saying it enough to myself, in which at one point that sticky that was on my wall over here was over here on my monitor to just constantly remind myself of this. It's not about moving fast all the time. It's about, can we take the time where we need to take the time without feeling guilty about it? It's the conscious understanding that all of us need to tell ourselves to slow down at some point. Even if you're not what you would consider to be the fastest worker in the world or the fastest thinker in the world, the pace of society is go, 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 go all the time, to the point where a lot of people, somewhat endemic behavior patterns within your generation, within the generation after you, my kids' generation, like, yes, I'll do that thing with you next weekend. And then you're like, the whole time you're like, why did I say yes to that? And it's, you want to just sit at home and watch Netflix or whatever. Like, there's this tension of, I want to go out and be with other people and I want to do things, but I also need this time for myself to just sort of sit and be quiet. And part of that is because we're moving so fast. It's amazing at the opportunities that open up to any of us when we just build in a little time to not be doing and to not have to go from thing to thing to thing, and to not just be quiet or solitary, but that you're being mindful of, I've got all these different things going on. And of all these things that are going on, which are the ones that are really like truly life or death? That's 1% at any given moment. These are the things that are the non-negotiable in here. You're not distracting yourself with screens or anything else, but you're sitting and you're thinking about, how does all of this stuff that I'm working on connect to one another? And how do I prioritize, like, these are the most important things? And being able to admit, where am I stuck? That humility of, like, I don't have all the answers, and I shouldn't push on myself to expect myself to have those answers. I'm not embarrassed to say to you, I'm stuck and I need you to help me out of this. I think that's part of what defines a leader, is when they are stuck, to say to somebody who doesn't consider themselves a leader, like, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Are you involved in this fractional or whole soul? To be able to ask questions of people that are not being thought of as leaders, or that advice, or that ability to slow yourself down, because sometimes that other person says to you, hey, you know what? Maybe what you're not thinking about is what the collective stress of the team is going through, and that by you pushing them to go harder or faster is actually not getting you the results that you want. Sometimes the person that you're not thinking about is the one that is actually holding on to the answer. As far as keeping wonder alive, that has nothing to do with any of this. That is literally holding onto that part of you that hopefully you still have, like that little spark or that kernel of what your little version of yourself was, that childlike version of yourself. Because back then, we all have things that we're blown away by it. We can't get enough of it. We aren't ever tired of seeing it or being surprised by it. Part of that is because we're super curious as children, and then our curiosity is quite literally beaten out of us by the system, like by school, and you have 45 minutes to learn math and you have 45 minutes to learn reading, and there's no space for us to ask a question. It's literally like, what's the answer? And so because we lose the ability to ask the questions that get at the things that we're curious about, to get the answers that we may not get otherwise, to invoke a response on somebody else that opens up a whole new line of inquiry for yourself, some new thing to get curious about and be like, ooh, what's that all about? If we're not doing that, then wonder doesn't have a chance, because wonder comes from like, wow, I didn't understand that it could be this amazing, or I have no idea that I would like this as much as I liked it. Like I had this vague understanding of it, but now that I'm experiencing it, like if you're not curious enough to go put yourself in the position to go have that experience, you're not going to experience that wonder. If you're not asking questions of the world around you and the people around you and the things that are going on, like it's really hard to be surprised, because the algorithms tune everything for us. So we see exactly what we expect to see because the algorithm knows that we want to see those things. And so that decreases our wonder, because you're being fed more of the same thing that you're asking for, versus like, wow, I had no idea that this thing could even be suggested to me. And now that it's been suggested to me, I can go broad with this, or I could go really deep with it. If you can admit to yourself that your curiosity is dim or dead, then it's like, what is it that you're going to do to rekindle that curiosity? And if it's dim, it's how do you turn it up? And if it's present in certain spots but not in others, how do you just reconnect to that, almost like one of our senses? That keeps wonder alive for me. I'm constantly being surprised by things that I see and what I hear and the conversations that I have.
You've accomplished so much, but what do you think continues to shape you now, not as a designer, but as a person? I know it's hard to separate because you're all one, right?
But I do think what is shaping me is the way that society is changing and evolving. And right now, I think there's a lot of need for concern. We've lost the ability for discourse. We've lost the ability to have a civil discussion about a lot of things. And I think that the tools and the services that we're all a part of exacerbate this in a way where there's so much polarization. I do feel that as an external effect on me, but I also use it as motivation to try to not be a part of that, or to disengage with that in the right way. So it's not just apathy, but like, what is it that I can do to be able to engage people and try to avoid the cynicism that comes back often? I think what's shaping me is how we're all changing as a society. What I'm speculating on is how it's going to change us as a species, because this is different in that it's not just helping us do things faster, which it is, but it's also thinking with us, and that there's this dangerous window in which some of us will just have it think for us. And I don't like that. I don't want people, whether it's inadvertent or on purpose, to just allow for a technology to think for us and be like, that's good enough. Like,
it's already
I don't need
happening.
to worry about, I know exactly. It's like, I don't think I need to know enough about how to file my taxes. I just need to ask ChatGPT what I'm supposed to do. I have a problem with those sorts of things. What continues to shape me is my own behavior, and then watching how people's behavior is evolving around me. It's my love for the human condition. I'm endlessly fascinated by it and what it is that we all want to do, what we need to do, what we choose to do, how we choose to do it. There's plenty of space in there to be left unhappy or disappointed or crestfallen. But to me, all of it is interesting, and it's all something that helps me see the world the way that I do. I can bring that to my personal life as just as easy as I bring it to my professional life as a designer. What are the quantities? What's the ratios of these things mixing together? And it's also why I am who I am. Like, you're right. I can't necessarily separate these two things a whole lot. What continues to shape me is what's always shaped me. It's my curiosity. It's my, what is it that I don't know, and how do I ask the right question to get somebody to be like, I'll tell you what that is. I'll explain this to you, and I'll show you how you can do that. My curiosity is my biggest superpower.
Part 4. Passing the light. There's a kind of magic in the way influence moves. How one person's belief can change the course of another's life. That's what Adam did for me. He saw me clearly, in my brilliance and my doubt, and somehow made room for both. Every lesson I've carried forward traces back to those moments. The ones that didn't look like lessons at the time. The way he asked questions that made me think differently. The way he trusted me to lead before I thought I was ready. The way he reminded me that strength doesn't have to shout to be seen. That's the thing about passing the light. It isn't about giving something away. It's about reflecting what's already there until the person standing across from you finally sees it too. What does mentorship mean to you?
I didn't really have a lot of mentorship. And so what mentorship means to me is my ability to give back the thing that I wish I so desperately had when I was getting started or when I was at key inflection points in my career where either I had to feel my way through it, I had to stumble my way through it, or I had to fight my way through it. All of those are not necessarily comfortable, but that adversity just teaches you to learn those lessons as fast as you can, or to be eyes open enough to see what needs to be done. Whereas now I just want to be able to pass on what I've learned. That to me is kind of the legacy that I look to leave behind as a designer, is for every person that I've touched in this regard that goes on to then offer that to whatever, 3, 5, 10, 30 people after the fact. It's like a network effect. We'll continue to hear stories and it'll be like, well, I had this mentor and all the way back, this person, Adam, taught me this thing, and you're going to be teaching some designer 2 generations away about this when you're doing this podcast on the other side of it for somebody else, right? Like, hopefully that's the thing. And that is what mentorship means to me, is whether you think you're ready or not, or that you're capable or not. When I'm mentoring you, I do believe that you are able to do something. And so part of that is to let you know that I think you're capable of it, but more importantly, that I give you things to think about or things to try to show yourself that you are indeed capable of doing these things, and to get you past some of your blocks or whatever. But like, to me, it's all just a form of giving out what I wish I always had but never did.
When you think about the people you've guided, like me, what do you hope they carry forward from you?
Literally that. It's also the ways to think about things. There is a way to think about this that can guide you. You don't have to follow exactly what I'm saying. How do I help you think the way that you think? The way that you need to think about it, but to give you like tips and tricks or things to try, even if you don't incorporate it into your daily practice, like every once in a while pull something back or remember something. And like, those are the things that I hope, the ones that stick out for you are the ones that you pass on to somebody else, whether it's somebody that you're mentoring or maybe it's just the person you're sitting in the seat next to.
So what have you learned about yourself through teaching and leading others?
I've learned that my enthusiasm for a subject does not necessarily mean that other people share that enthusiasm. And so when you're teaching other people and you're saying like, there's a reason why I'm teaching you this, it's like, it's essential that you know what I'm telling you, or it's, understand what I'm telling you, or that I'm relying on you to make decisions on your own based on this information. It's cyclical in that it's back to my advertising things. how do I explain this super complicated thing or this very elaborate thing in the fewest words possible so that you get the most meaning out of what I'm trying to say to set up those initial conditions I was talking about before. When you're teaching somebody, you have to realize that where you are as the person teaching is like miles and miles into the journey that you took to get there, and that everybody else is literally where you were on day one. And we always forget where we were on day one, where you don't know anything, you don't know the right question to ask, etc. And it's about being able to put yourself back in those shoes, in your own shoes. Like, this is what I felt like when I didn't know it. And then if you start teaching from that point, people are like, I totally get it. You're making it super simple for me to understand, because you had to go through that simplification process yourself to get there. No matter how excited I am about something, I have to somehow channel that excitement so that you pick it up at the very least, but that it's not about showcasing everything that I know. It's about taking the very top slice of that and doing that really well. How do you get really clear and simple about something that you've spent 10 years getting smart on, or a lifetime getting smart on? You can't expect everybody to be like, okay, well, it's been 2 hours, and so now I'm as smart as you. Like, you have to get them in there one baby step at a time. And learning that is also to say, like, ooh, I can go way too deep sometimes right off the bat. And so part of it is like gauging, like, is this one of those times? And the answer is very rarely. And most of the time it's start simple and let's keep it simple and then go from there.
What does legacy mean to you now?
The legacy that I want to leave as a designer is, are you being authentically thoughtful? Are you really solving the problem for the end user? And are you thinking about what they are going through physically, emotionally, those things? Like, are you really thinking about the person on the other end of what you're doing? Or are you making a 6-figure paycheck because you know Figma, right? Like, there's a difference, and there are plenty of people who do both. But what I definitely hope I leave behind as my design legacy is a network of designers who understand the value of thinking and feeling deeply about the human condition.
How do you hope people remember the way you led, not just the work, but you yourself? I think most people are intimidated by you.
Well, I know that. I don't want them to remember me any other way than the way that I was, but sometimes I am as hard and demanding as a person you will ever, and I know that you know this, and I know that the people that we all work with know this too, but you also know that I am profoundly human and aware of what you need as a human being outside of your work role, and that I do care about whether or not you're happy and you're healthy and you're comfortable and that you're able to do a good job at your work because you're fulfilled, or that you have some sense of attainment. You're capable and free to do the things that you need to do. Some people are intimidated as hell when they meet me because I do require or ask so much of a team. I do want you to be the very best that you can be. And look, if you're doing your absolute best and it's good or good enough, that's all I can ask for. But if I see that you're fucking amazing and you're kind of phoning it in, or you're not giving yourself the self-credit that you need to succeed, yeah, I'm going to push you a little harder, and that's going to be uncomfortable. You aren't just getting patted on the head saying, good job, here's your participation trophy. I want you to work for what you want. The feeling that you get on the other side of that is so much more rewarding, where you're like, I was pushed past my point of comfortability, and oh, by the way, I was capable of doing more than I thought I was able to. I hope people remember me for the way they are, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes, I agree. You've given so much of yourself to others. What has that given back to you?
This community that we've built, this network of people, I do mean this in the sense of current and former IBMers, but I have met so many other wonderful, talented, and smart people outside of that particular ring because of it, and then sometimes just alongside of it. What I get back is this sense of belonging, this community where if anybody came to me and said, do you know of somebody who's an expert in this aspect of design? I almost certainly do, and I can almost certainly make a connection. it is connected to when I was trying to get my first job in advertising. I knew nobody in the industry. I was just sort of cold calling and knocking on doors. And so to have that person who's an in somewhere who can be like, oh, I know a person who works there and I'd be happy to put in a good word for you. Giving that back as something that I can do. It's that reciprocity. I just feel like I want and I need to give it back because I didn't have any of that and I somehow succeeded in spite of that. And so any place that I can give back to that gives back to me because it's like, oh, I see you thriving and I see you happy and I see that you've moved on to do these things and that now you're the design leader at your company. That's the best thing I could possibly ask for. It's not that somebody wants to throw a party for me or whatever. It's just, are you getting the success that you wanted for yourself? And if I was able in some small or large part help you to do that, that's the best. That's what I get back the most out of all of this.
I really did feel the support from IBMers was incredible. I was just like, oh my gosh, what we built over 10 years was amazing. It really did feel like landing in a soft net. When you look at the next generation of designers, what gives you hope?
I'm going to tell you what makes me scared or makes me concerned first,
yes.
But then I'll tell you what gives me hope. What gives me concern is that the generation of designers that is truly going to inherit AI in the way that as a generation of designers, my generation inherited the web and then cloud-based applications, is that you're not curious enough to understand how the technology works. And that when we talk about designing for AI, the conversation is basically designing with AI. It's like, well, I use Figma right now, so how do I use AI to make Figma go faster, to do better? Or 6 ways to use Figma Make to build out a site. That's not how AI works. It's just a fetishization of like the tooling and the things that you do with AI in the mix. What I'm afraid of is that the curiosity to learn how this works so that you can be the architects of the future, quite literally, like you are designing the user experiences that support these things, makes me nervous because if you don't take the reins, if you don't push our humanity into these solutions, people will design fast using AI tools to get those results faster, and it won't be thinking about us at all. It'll be thinking about completing the task. Yes. But what gives me hope is I just gave a talk about this a few weeks ago in Bend, Oregon. I really do truly believe that in the same way that the electron microscope helped us understand our humanity because now we could see things at the ultra microscopic level, it gave us the ability to create new materials and to understand diseases and viruses and then how to make pharmaceuticals to address those problems. It materially changed the quality of life for humanity, period. Like it allows us to live longer and more effectively and efficiently. And I think that AI is going to be like the electron microscope, but for the human condition. And so what gives me hope is that as the capability of this thing, this electron microscope for who we are as humans continues to get better, you will be the ones designing what that means. And there will be a ton of garbage or like the frivolous things, like there'll be whatever like the Vine or TikTok version of AI will be. It'll be like the pure mindless, like we can scroll forever or chat forever sort of stuff. But you're also going to create things that are like, I don't know, the web browser or the word processor or the image editor. Like you're going to come up with whatever the next generation of these things are, and that each one of these innovations, and not just from like design tooling, but just like how do we see ourselves as human beings, you're going to help shape what that ultimate electron microscope ends up being for us. And that means you all need to understand yourselves as human beings more so than ever before. And that there's going to be stumbling points and there's going to be growing pains and there's going to be difficulty with it because you as generations after Generation X have grown up with screens, like some of that curiosity and some of that wonder is diminished because we're just in front of our screens all the time. I mean, we in Generation X are as well. But like as a generation of designers who are going to be literally in the driver's seat for this transformation, it's how you're going to continue to think about where our humanity sits within these solutions that gives me hope. This is what makes me excited, is that I will have my finger on this in some way, shape, or form until the moment that I decide to hang up my spurs, and that's that.
you all have another 20 to 30 years of doing this, and the world is going to be unrecognizable in some ways. 30 years from now, like if you wind yourself 30 years back from where we are today, I mean, we barely had cell phones at that point, right?
Yeah.
You know, like the modern internet was just getting on its feet, right? Like, so where are we going to be 30 years from now with technology? I guarantee you chatting with an LLM is going to be like the furthest thing from our mind. There's going to be something else. You all get to design what that is for us. That's exciting.
I think so too. And I hope that I have a hand in doing that. That's why I wanted to stay in the field. I loved solving these problems, and I think it's cool working on something that doesn't exist and making patterns for it. Part 5. The Light Beyond. The older I get, the more I understand that light isn't something you chase. It's something you learn to carry. It changes shape, softens, deepens, and when you share space with someone who's carried it for a long time, you start to see how wisdom isn't loud. It's steady. That's how it feels talking to Adam. Our conversations always find their way here, to the big questions, the ones that live beyond the work. What do you think the role of design or creativity in general will look like in the next decade?
It is 100% without a doubt how to keep human beings in the center of what it is that we're making and what it is that we're doing. I don't know that it'll ever change. I don't know that's going to change like 5 decades from now. Or, I mean, maybe we'll hit the eventual singularity where machine and human intelligence fuse together inseparably forever and ever after that. We talk about that when it happens. The role of design doesn't change ever. The role of design is to serve the user. I try to make everything as elemental as I can for myself. It helps me stay true to myself, and it helps others to follow along. But I really do think that we spend too much time over intellectualizing what it is that we do. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter beyond, did we solve our users' problems?
Right. I love that. When you look back on your own journey, what do you think guided you the most? Instinct, timing, or intention?
I think the first part of the journey, and I couldn't tell you exactly where the first part ends, in that transition to a full-on adulthood, I think it was primarily instinct. My gut told me things, and I was stupidly confident enough to believe in those things, but it turned out that I was. People trusted me and that they sought me out for those sort of intuitions or whatever. That's the fun part of being
in your 20s, you know?
Yeah, and then I think it was when Phil asked me to move to Austin and to do the design program. I remember having a very clear thought and sort of scribble session in one of my sketchbooks, which I'm sure I still have. The question I scribbled down was, how do I slow down my own thought process enough to teach this to other people? Because prior to that point, it was just go be yourself, go do the thing, go win the client, go deliver the client. Like, nobody was asking me to show my math, and they weren't asking me, how did you get there? They just wanted the result. And so when I flipped over and I was like, well, how do I slow myself down, or how do I teach others all these lessons that I learned the hard way coming up in this business? Mm-hmm. That was when intention really stepped forward to be a great designer. Like, you can be a good designer and design off of instinct, but to be a truly great designer, you have to have intention. Like, this is where we need to end up. This is the goal. This is the vision. This is the thing that we can then work towards. Definitely solidified then was the intention of what is it that we're doing and why are we doing this and who are we doing this for? And that's not to say that that instinct part of it isn't shot through the middle of all of that stuff, but to be a whole lot more intentional and to pass that on as a advice. I wish somebody told me when I was 25, like, the best thing that you can do is to design with intention. And it, I sort of stumbled backwards into it, but here we are. At least we made it there. So.
You made it somehow. You did a good job. How do you define success now compared to when you started?
I mean, on the one hand, it hasn't changed at all.
did I solve the user's problem? That's really success. But it's also, did we get through it as a team and we didn't want to kill each other at the end of it is also a form of success. And that to me is different than when you're just an individual contributor, or you're just coming up, or you're just a team member. Success is that I did the thing that my boss asked me to do, and I did it well enough for them to go, good job, or you're not fired today. Keep doing it again. When you start to work at larger scale, the concept of what success is not singular in nature. It's a number of dimensions, and that you can deliver an awesome project. And if your team is demoralized at the end of it, in spite of doing great work, as a leader, that's like, oh, I wish I didn't have to kill them to do that, or I wish I didn't kill them to do that, but that we did it because we were laughing and joking the whole way. Does the team want to stay a team? Would the team lay themselves down for the well-being of another teammate? That is as much of the success as it is, hey, we won an award for this, or 300,000 people are using whatever it was that we made. Did we get there in a way that made us better along the way instead of like subtracting bits and pieces of us along the way?
Yeah. Like, did I lose my soul while I got there, or did I not?
Yeah, exactly. And I do my absolute best to make it so that we don't lose your soul in the process.
I still have my soul somehow. What do you think we get wrong about leadership?
Most people get wrong the concept of managing people versus leading people. We think of leadership as a stripe to attain, as a step in our career. And being a leader has nothing to do with what your title is. It has nothing to do with how long you've been there. Being a leader is that people want to follow you. Sure, somebody can say like, oh, Bora, you're the leader of this project. And then everyone's like, well, we have to follow Bora because we were just told she's the leader. Even if that's the case, as a leader, that sentiment of, well, we have to follow this person because we were told to, should dissipate, right? Like if you're a great leader, people want to follow you because you have good ideas or important things to say, or like you somehow make us all better or stronger or happier. We think about leadership as this thing that we're owed or that we deserve, or that it's like a career goal, that I want to be on the leadership team meeting because that's where we make decisions. Being a leader is just being somebody who people want to follow for all the right reasons. That's what I think we get wrong about this.
Where do you find beauty these days? The kind that makes you pause?
Nature, for sure. Especially experiencing things that you go, man, nowhere else on the planet could I be seeing this right now. Even if it's like a repeat visit, like making a drive out to West Texas or driving up to New Mexico, like the Taos from Austin. Most people would be like, oh, this is so boring. And to me, it's like big sky and wind farms and ghost towns and things that you don't see in your everyday life. To me, that is just as exciting. Or like every summer we go travel back east to see our friends and family for a little while when it's just beastly hot here in Austin. And more often than not, we don't fly, we drive from Austin to Massachusetts. And you get to see so much of the way the country is. You can't take for granted where you are, and especially if you don't really follow a route other than like I work at home, I get in the car, I go to the office, I work there, and then I maybe go out for a drink with friends, or I go out to dinner and then I go back home. Like people live in these little loops. To go out into nature and to see and experience other parts of the world, other parts of the country, other parts of your state, there's just something so magnificent about it. And it's literally in your backyard, but you don't think to look at it. Like for us being in Texas, like going out to West Texas,
Crunchy
or
grass.
like if you're fly to New Zealand and to see like, a completely different way of living life. Or like, I remember when we were there and we were in Wellington, and I was like, it must be a holiday because the city isn't all that populated. And then you're like, no, the entire country, New Zealand, has like 7 million people, and like there's 250,000 people in their capital city. And it's just, this is what it looks like when you don't have a population that's smashed together. They live a completely different way of life. I just find utter beauty. Again, it's in that human condition, and like, how do we show up as a species, and depending on the environment that we're in or what we have at our disposal. So to me, finding beauty is, where do we find it? Where do we go? Where can you go?
What's a moment in your career you're most proud of, not because of recognition, but because of what it meant?
The design program at IBM, hands down. Like, sure, we've won countless awards and all sorts of stuff with that. But if you had asked me in 2001 when I joined the company, would this be something that the company was known for and would I be a part of it? I mean, not in a million years did I think that that would be something that was even doable or possible. And that as it was happening, it was sort of like, pinch me, I think I'm dreaming sort of thing. I can't believe that we're having the positive impact that we're having. It was so multidimensional too. One was like giving people like yourself a place that you felt like you belonged and that there was a community that you were a part of and that you were all working towards some large common goal to be the best designers that you could be and to do it in this weird place to do it in, like some big software company. That was important. But then what it signaled for the community of design broadly, everybody else was looking at what we were doing, and to have our design thinking platform held up as the gold standard or something that needed to be talked about, that was huge too. But it was all because it was giving me the thing that made me almost quit IBM in my first week to thousands of people, which was like, there is a reason for design, and design does have a place, and there is an importance behind it, and it is its own craft, its own science. It's not just art, but that there's a reason for this to be here and to be a part of that, and not for the recognition of it, but to know that it literally put a small dent in a very limited universe. It did make a difference. It has made a difference, and it's changed a generation of designers because of it. And to be a part of that, I'm far from being solely responsible for it, but to be a part of that is just one of the most rewarding things ever.
I'm really thankful that I cold applied and became a part of it. I don't know how that happened, but I'm really thankful it made me who I am. How do you navigate moments of doubt or uncertainty now?
This is probably the most difficult, and I'm sure whoever is listening to this, there's going to be more than one person that would say, oh, hell no. But it is being shameless about externalizing the uncertainty and the doubt. There's this weird catch-22. If you're leading us, if you're a leader, how could you have uncertainty or doubt? And it's like, there isn't a leader out there that doesn't experience uncertainty and doubt. And I think for a lot of us, it's part embedded in how we search for jobs and how we try to qualify ourselves. The very last thing that we would think to do is to be like, hey, I don't know this. I'm afraid of this. I'm uncertain. I don't know if I have what it takes. Like, we think we're showing weakness or our belly by saying this out loud. It depends on what it is. Like, there's no formula for this, or it's like for these matters. But generally, if I'm ever feeling uncertainty or doubt, I'm going to be like, hey, you know what? I have to say, I'm feeling a little doubtful about this, or the lack of clarity on this is really making me concerned. To simply say that, it's similar to what I was saying before about like having an idea that we can look at together. Being open about it is the most important thing. That's one way to answer that question. The other one is I literally just put my head down and go, yeah, maybe I am uncertain, but when I realized, you know what, this isn't a life or death discussion or decision that I have to make. It's just, what is literally the worst thing that could happen if I'm wrong about this? And I think that is a wonderful way to get past doubt and uncertainty, is where you're like, yeah, maybe your anxiety is screaming in your ear and your gut's all twisted up. But when you really stop and ask yourself practically, what's the worst thing that could happen if I'm wrong here? And if it's like we wasted 2 weeks worth of work, is everyone going to be happy about that? Probably not. But is it the end of the world? No. Sometimes it's just, I don't know, and who cares? Like, let's just go and find out. And always course correct after. This is something that I was talking to my wife about the other night, and something that I was talking about with my business partner, where there's a certain maturity that the older you get, or the more that you've been in certain situations, that you've learned this ability to be like, what's the worst that can happen? I'm not going to let this paralyze me. I'm just going to do it, and then we can course correct. And it is that I'm just going to course correct, will adjust after, is something that when younger and or not in charge and somebody else is making decisions for you, that doesn't ever get taught to you as a lesson. It's something that you sort of come to by accident, or maybe you have some pivotal experience where you figure it out. Once you learn that, or you have that epiphany, however it occurs, then you sort of get this pressure lifted off of you. You're like, oh, I can just fix it later. I have the perfect example for this, in which you and I were both involved. We were just getting through the first pass of Carbon for AI, and we very proudly said to everybody, here you go, here are the Figma components, this is done, you can start going with it. And then like 3 days after that, we were like, this isn't as accessible as it needs to be. And we have to deal with all of this transparency in the UI and all this other stuff. And we basically came to the conclusion, like 3 days after we launched it, we were like, we have to redo the whole thing. And it was like right before the holiday break. And we were all like, well, we'll just deal with that when we get back from the break. And we did. But we made a huge commitment to like hundreds, maybe thousands of people. And we were like, this is it. And then we got back from break and we're like, just kidding. But since we did it smart, we changed it all in the Figma and it just spidered through everybody else's designs and the problem was solved. It was like we were smart about it. Sure, maybe there was a moment where you guys were like, blah, blah, blah. But then when we got right down to it, it's like we all knew it was the case. So what else is there to do but to put our head down and fix it? I didn't lose any sleep over it. You know, if you guys had grumbleberries with me, it was fine. I'm good with that.
I mean, I knew we needed to do it. I already knew that it wasn't gonna be. But what's funny is I saw our exact design out in the real world now as new design. And then I saw all the comments because I was like, we really did estimate correctly, almost to a T. And then like after I was like, oh, maybe we should have. I was like doubting ourselves, but I was like, I feel like we made the right decision. And then later I saw all these comments hating on that design for the exact reasons why we pivoted in the first place. So that's when I knew like, oh yeah, we made the right decision and I don't have to worry because we thought it through. And just seeing that happen in real time is just, it's just so funny.
But it's also like to maybe spin it in a little easier to take. You experience that in real time. And even if we all loved what we said, all right, here you go, here it is. When you get the kickback, the pushback on like, yeah, but this sucks or this could be way better. There's something inside of you, which is like, if you're egoless, and this is what I'm trying to say is like, if you're egoless about it, like, it's not to say that you're not disappointed. I mean, yeah, we are disappointed. We're like, we love this and we thought it was super cool. And then you're like, yeah, but it's making people's processors blow up and it's, you know, it's making the fans blow and all this other stuff. And you're like, okay, we don't want to do this, but we know that it's the right thing to do. And I think it's that being at peace with it. Like, yes, you can be disappointed for a little bit, but then you're like, you know what? It was the right thing. Even if it wasn't what we wanted, it was the right thing. And to have that maturity or that feeling of, I'm okay with this. We can make this change. Too much of it is the permanence of it all. I have to get it right the first time. And I don't know where that imposed pressure comes from, whether it's like the pressure of the business or the pressure we put on ourselves or a combination of the both. If we let ourselves get paralyzed by the doubt or the uncertainty, bad things generally happen. And like, I feel this even more with AI. And so it's better to know that you've made the wrong choice as soon as possible than to let something sort of go and fester or eventually evolve into something bad. And if you can see it right away, maybe it is creating more work for you. It's generally for the better. So be okay with it.
I'm really happy with what we decided and I'm really proud of the work that we did. What kind of world do you hope the next generation builds, and what advice would you leave them with?
I hope we find some rebuilding of our curiosity, and that what I'm scared of right now is that the more we start giving thought over to ChatGPT and to Claude and to Gemini, like where we're not critically engaging with the things that we're asking of it. They're doing studies right now that's literally finding that we're making ourselves dumber by the day because we're not going through the effort of having the thought, we're just having it made for us. And what I hope from the next generation is that they build some of that wonder and curiosity back into what we're doing, that we're genuinely curious about what makes somebody else tick or what we're capable of doing or imagining, whether it's with or without AI or whether it's between humans. There's some sort of curiosity in ourselves and in how we live our lives, because when we stop being curious, that's when we stop caring about how other people's lives are affected by the decisions that we are both indirectly and directly responsible for. And to be more mindful is something that I hope the next generation builds. And yet it's so difficult, and it's easy to feel like you're an insignificant little speck against a challenge of that size. But I do think that everybody has it within them to be a contributor to this. I really do have hope that as you all figure out what it means to be novel and creative using AI to be better humans, that we're going to come up with some really amazing, life-changing stuff. And I'm so looking forward to seeing what gets made with it.
Me too. I hope to have a hand in it. I didn't want to leave the field. The last question is a question I plan on asking all the people I interview, a question from the episode. What does passing the light mean to you?
I mean, I've alluded to it a couple different ways, but it's like, how do I pass on the lessons that I've learned the hard way, where I had to fight for them? I had to claw to get to the opportunity, or to that once I had the opportunity, that I had some way to bring others into that idea or to see where I wanted to go. To pass the light means to provide that curiosity and the courage to say something, to say when I don't know, to say I need your help, to say I'm stuck and I'm not sure what to do, and to readily and willingly take the help that's offered and that empathy that goes with it, to pass that on. And I hope that people did see that in me, or do see that in me, in terms of how I've collaborated and worked with others and led others, but to pass that on as a behavior set or a set of traits that you will then carry forward and in each your own way, and that you're somehow being conscious of what it is that you're going to leave behind, instead of just putting your head down and kicking out another set of screens or whatever it is that we do.
Thank you so much for sitting here in this podcast with me. Then I will be editing all this and it'll be going out tomorrow. But I'm really excited. I did get laid off too. Woo! I knew it that was going to happen, because I was like, they took the head out and then they're going to come for me next. But a lot of people were saying that they were so sorry and this and that. But I cried the first day because I was grieving how I watched us grow IBM Design from the bottom up, and then watching it crumble piece by piece, and then watching it die in front of me, basically. That, I think, is why I was crying, because I just thought like, oh, what I once had was so beautiful and it was so fleeting and I don't have it anymore, and I don't know if I'll get it again. But that was such an incredible experience for me to be a part of. And I was just like, well, now I have to go out there again.
Well, it's funny. I was talking with a former IBMer yesterday, and this person didn't know that I had been let go. And they were incredulous. They couldn't believe it. And
right?
I was like, I don't know why you can't believe it. Like, yeah, I was there for a long time or whatever, but it's a company. They don't care about the people. They just care about their business. And that's fine. I get it. That's life at a corporation.
Yeah, it's not like a personal dig.
No, it's not personal.
Yeah.
You're just a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
But this person said to me, well, you must be so sad about seeing it all end. And I said, nope, not at all. And I didn't feel any grief or anger when I was let go. What I feel about all of it is joy. And the reason why I feel joy is that it happened at all. That it happened at all is like next to miraculous. And that it happened, and not only did it happen and then die a quick, short death, but that it happened and that it went for over a decade, and that it changed thousands and thousands of people's minds about how to think about doing their work, how to solve problems, how to collaborate with one another, how to have fun at our jobs, and have that fun show up as love and care for our end users, so that people really did enjoy using the things that we made to help make their lives better, and not just, here's another stupid tool that I have to use to get through my day. Like, all of that, the fact that it happened at all is truly amazing, and why I have nothing but joy and gratitude for all of it. And
same.
Big company is going to be a big company. What's to be done about it?
Hey, we had a lot of fun. I don't know, maybe I'll find another like that, or maybe I'll be in the next round making something like that. Who knows?
And honestly, I wish that was something that we did talk about, but like that is the key to it all, is that very rarely are we asked to go do the big important thing. It's just that it happens because you wanted it to happen. And that nobody's going to come along and give it to you on a silver platter. Most of the time, the thing that you end up being known for, or that is your like claim to fame or whatever, is because you went and did it for yourself, or you went and did it for somebody else. Like, it's that you took the initiative. It's not that you waited around for somebody to be like, great job, here's your opportunity. Like, that's a very 50s patriarchal way of looking at it. It's like, oh, the big boss is coming, you have to, prepare dinner for him at your house, all that bullshit. Like, it's not about somebody coming and giving you the opportunity. It's about you making that happen for yourself.
Yes. I hope I'm going to be that person, and that I can help others become that person. But
you can be.
I will be. And I'm excited because, like, if I don't get a job, then I've been calling this a forced sabbatical. And so I'm just going to enjoy myself and rely on others, because I'm so hyper independent. I don't rely on others, and it was hard for me. So now I can, because Dad still has a job. So it's your turn now. Let me be a stay-at-home cat, and let me have this break where I can relax a little bit and just get back to a healthier state of mind, so that I can start to wonder again, because I was in a really dark place, and you really helped me a lot. I want to thank you so much. I couldn't even have made this podcast if you were not my mentor, because like, who was I? Who was I 2 years ago?
I mean, on the one hand, I think you might be giving me a little too much credit. All I do, it's in you. It's there already. And I just go, well, why don't you just do this? And you're like, yeah, why don't I just do that? Like, I'm just pushing you a little bit, just a little bit, not a lot. I'm just saying, like, you're capable. Do your thing. Just go do your thing. You're going to be awesome. Trust yourself.
I feel like the encouragement was helpful. Yeah, I don't know why,
I'm
but
glad.
it was really helpful for me to have that from you.
I saw talent and drive and a surety, and there was no two ways about it. When you knew what you were talking about, you spoke from such an area of confidence and authority that it was like stunning to me. You were just like, no, it's like this. Or, oh, you're overthinking it. Like, you were so sure of yourself. And then we would talk outside of like those calls or whatever, and you'd be all full of self-doubt. And I'm like, wait a minute, where's the Vora that was like, nope, it's this. And it's this way because we scientifically, mathematically proved it out to be this way. And I was like, well, where is that version of Vora and all these other things? For me, it was just, I don't know, part of it was that you were like, hey, do you think you want to mentor me? And I was like, of course I want to mentor you. And then it was your willingness to take whatever it was that I was trying to tell you, and then to go make it personally relevant for yourself, that then gave you the opportunity to go do something with it. And I think for the other people that you followed or that led you throughout your career, I don't know that they pushed you hard enough to be like, yeah, but why not? But why wouldn't you do that? And so I don't know, what I saw in you was like, here's somebody who is a freaking amazing designer, and yet there's these parts where she doesn't believe in herself, and all I had to do was to just give you the reason for you to believe in yourself.
That's funny. Well, anyway, you're going to be my mentor whether you like it or not. So you can't escape.
I'm okay. I'm a willing participant here. I'm good.
I love interviewing people and learning about what makes them tick, and I want to explore more about different designers. Designers are so cool, or just people. It's really fun.
This to me is everything, right? Like, you're like, I don't know, maybe I should do a podcast. I'm like,
fun.
you should totally do a podcast.
Yeah.
And look at how, like, if people are going to end up listening to this particular part, but if this part does make it in there, and people can't see the smile that is like on your face from ear to ear, like the light that's in your eyes and the smile that's on your face, like I'm saying this out loud so that if you are listening to this and it does go in there, that it's visually apparent that you're having a good time and that you're enjoying this and that good things are coming of it. Whether it's what you planned on or not, it's that you've done it at all, and that you've
right.
Followed through on your curiosity with bravery and courage to say, like, look, I'm going to put myself out there. And what you've found, whether it is that you have success as a podcaster or not, it's that you enjoy asking questions of people and hearing what they have to say. And that is you kindling or rekindling your curiosity and curiosity in what I think is the most important thing, curiosity in others, curiosity in each other as people, as humans, as fellow travelers on this weird up journey we're all on as humans on this planet, and making sense of what it all is and what it all means. You're in a really good spot right now. That's the truth of this, is that you're enjoying yourself. And it doesn't matter if you're getting paid for it or if this is your job or something that you're doing because it's making you happy. What's important is that you're doing it at all and that it's making you have that smile that you have on your face right now.
I'm going to keep doing it. And then maybe the next season I'll interview Jody and then and I'll pick her brain, and then it's going to be fun. So just, look forward to that.
I mean, anytime I get to hear my wife answer these types of questions, it's like,
I'm going to pick her brain. I want to stump her. I'm going to ask her all the things. I want to know all her hobbies. I want to know everything. So that's what I'm going to do. I think I'll continue it.
It'll be like Julia. There's a lot of them.
Oh, good. I love designers. That's because of this. We're just so multifaceted. They say an aurora appears when movement meets air, when light travels far enough to touch what can hold it. Its motion made visible, the sky remembering how to move, turning energy into color and distance into wonder. We build light the same way, through connection, through care, through the acts that bind our work to one another. What we carry grows brighter when it meets someone else's belief. Creation lives in the exchange, in the moment our light collides with another and becomes something new. Every spark passed forward becomes part of something larger. Every person who carries it adds their own hue. Together, we form a living spectrum, a collective glow shaped by trust, by teaching, by the choice to keep creating. The goal was never to stand beneath the light. It was always to build it, to take everything we've learned, everything that's been given, and turn it into color that reaches beyond us. The aurora doesn't belong to one sky or one hand. It's the living proof of what happens when movement meets meaning, the shared brilliance of everything still becoming. This is the work now, to build what lasts, to shape light into something that moves with us, to leave color in motion for those who come next. The sky keeps turning, and so do we, creating, connecting, sending the light forward. This was After the Moonlight. I'm Vora. Until next time, keep building your own aurora.